Okay, so GOhioCast podcast. We are talking to two-time All-American for the Ohio State University, Mike Schyck. Mike, from the great state of Florida. We're talking about the recent HBO documentary, Surviving Ohio State, which you participated in the documentary, and talking about Dr. Richard Strauss and that's your team doctor at your time at the Ohio State University. Mike, how many times did you win a state title in the state of Florida?
Two. I was in the finals three times and placed all 4 years, but the last 2 years went undefeated and won both.
Okay, so you then go to Ohio State. Who was the main person recruiting you? Russ Hellickson?
Yeah, we wrestled in a tournament every year in Sebring, Florida, and my junior year, the athletic director slash wrestling coach from that school cornered me and asked me if I'd ever consider wrestling at Ohio State because he was friends with Hellickson and Wayne Stapleford was his name. He was from Wisconsin. He's in the Hall of Fame in Wisconsin and here in Florida. And he started reaching out to Hellickson for me, and he and Jordan started writing letters and calling, and then Doug Bluebaugh came down to watch me wrestle and a couple times, and then went on all my recruiting trips. I went to Minnesota, and I came home and told my folks I'm going to Minnesota, and I had been to all the 28-day camps back in the day, with Jay Robinson and Dan Gable, and I decided that I was going to go there. And my dad basically said, "You've earned the right to go to one more, and you should go." And out of respect to those guys, so I went on the trip. And after I went, I mean, that was the first time meeting Hellickson and Jordan. I had a dilemma. I had to figure out where I wanted to go. I didn't think I was going to ever want to go to Ohio State because I was a Michigan fan. I was born in Michigan, so I was a big Michigan fan. And my decision to go to Ohio State was solely based on Russ and Jim.
What year did you graduate? Are you 88, 89, or 90?
88.
You're
19,
88. So you're with Adam DeSabato's class, correct?
yeah, yeah. Adam, Aaron Shetter, Dan Ritchie. Believe it or not, Rex Holman. Rex went to Arizona State for a spell and then came back to uh, Ohio State.
So that's a pretty loaded class of 1988 for you guys. I know my brother Ferd was 87 and my brother Chad was 89. So you're sandwiched in between them and they were on the team with you at Ohio
There was
State.
another Miller. Who was the other Miller that was there too?
Bucky.
Buck. Dude, he had a hell of a front headlock, a lefty front headlock. He did not want to get in that thing.
No, really good front headlock. Buck was,
Really good front headlock.
yes, really good front headlock. I think he was on the team for like 2 years, maybe.
No
And
one could freaking defend it because he was a lefty.
yeah,
No one knew how to defend it.
that's wild that you still remember that.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. NCAA tournaments. Did you place in 92 and 93 or 91, 92?
92 and then 93. My first 2 years, about a week before or a couple days before each Big Ten tournament, I separated my ribs or broke my ribs. I mean, I wrestled Larry Gotcher maybe my redshirt freshman year in a dual meet at Michigan. And do you remember how Kyle Snyder got pinned by Sajalev in
Yes.
that like where they were like he grabbed him and rolled him and broke his rib? That's
Yeah.
what Gotcher did to me, and I broke my rib. And then a week later was the Big Ten tournament. I wrestled him in a rat tail and lost to him 3-2 in the rat tail. And I was just injured. I ended up was an alternate, didn't go. And then the next year, I broke my ribs again in wrestling practice, and a week before the Big Ten tournament. So I kind of my first 2 years were a little bit not healthy.
Well, I remember your style was a funk style. I remember the mat returns. When you would get mat returned, you would always do a somersault,
Yeah.
granny roll into a flip, and you were always just like a funk master to me. And when I watch that, like I watch like a Joey Blaze now, that's really hard on your body. And you tend to, it takes you a while to figure it out. And you were the top dog in Florida, right? You're the best guy in Florida. And then you go to the Big Ten and you got to figure some of those things out and you get hurt a lot, right? Like, cause you're figuring it out and you're trying to like compete at the level you competed at, obviously a two-time All-American, but do you think that was a learning curve with that funk style you had a little bit?
No, my high school coach was really good at I mean, he kind of adopted that Granby system where we were doing tripod to a Peterson roll Granby. So I was always doing that. And when I got to college, it just it kind of blossomed into what it did. I mean, uh, I could get up off the mat quickly, and I just didn't want to deal with someone's strength, so I kind of went limp to kind of give them the thought that they could lift me, and I let them lift me, and then once they did, I'd go right into like a little bit of a cartwheel, and that's kind of what I did.
Oh, sweet.
But would have liked to have gotten I won a couple, I won a lot of matches with that. I wrestled GT Taylor in the quarterfinals of the Las Vegas tournament, and then went beat him doing that move in overtime. Would have liked to have gotten the flip of the coin against Malika my senior year, and maybe have would have pulled that one out to win the match, but didn't happen.
So you GT Taylor's an Ohio guy,
Yeah,
Arizona State, right?
Arizona State. Yeah,
And then Malika, Arizona State, Ohio guy.
yeah.
And you ran into a lot of, you were rough on the Ohio guys, right? You wrestled them a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure I did. I came across a lot of Ohio guys. I wrestled Josh Robbins. I mean, he was from Ohio guy too, right? Went to
Yeah.
Penn State.
Cincinnati
I
guy,
mean,
yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
there were several that were in my weight class.
Wow, you had loaded weights too. When you were you seventh and fifth at the NCS?
Yeah, my senior year, I mean, my junior year, I was really happy with. I was seeded eighth. I mean, the two guys I lost to were Pat Smith in the quarterfinals. I think it was like 7-3 or 7-4, and then I wrestled Tom Ryan to get in for third and fourth. It was a tight match going into the last period. And, I actually think I was winning going into the third period. And then uh, my senior year was not, it was going good. I ended up losing in overtime to Malika. It was a flip of a coin, and he won the flip of the coin. And weirdly, on the mat right next to me, um, I ended up losing the flip of the coin. Malika got out with 12 seconds left. On the mat next to me, Dan Wernsberger was wrestling Sean Bormet, and we just had a conflict of styles. I couldn't beat Bormet. Bormet couldn't beat Wernsberger, and I could beat Wernsberger easily. And they went to overtime, and Wernsberger won the flip of the coin, and he ended up getting out. So if I would have won, I would have wrestled Wernsberger, who I beat, I think 7-0 or 4-5-0 in the Big Tens the week before, and then I beat him in a dual meet pretty handily. And then if I would have won in the semifinals against him, I would have had Josh Robbins in the finals. So just shoulda, coulda, woulda. Didn't happen.
Okay, who was your blood round match that year?
Blood round match. Oh, geez, Marty Collins.
Marty
Dude,
Collins!
listen,
The
listen.
Marty!
I beat him 15-1 earlier in the year, and I was sulking. The reporter from from Florida, cornered me after I was sitting up against the bleachers on my butt on the ground, after I lost to Malika, and he comes up to me and trying to interview me, and I'm crying, and he goes, "Well, can you give me a quote?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't think I have the luck of the Irish because it was St. Patrick's Day." And because I didn't win the flip of the coin. But I'm sulking. I'm on the backside, and he freaking puts me in a cradle. So he's winning 4-2. I had to take him down two or three times in the last period to beat him, and I ended up doing it. And then my next match, so I ended up beating Marty Collins. I ended up pulling
Okay,
one out.
Cleveland State Marty Collins or Kent State Marty Collins?
Cleveland State.
Cleveland State. Okay.
Cleveland
He
State.
was EWL champ and MAC champ. He's like one of the few guys to win multiple
Yeah,
conferences. Rex
yeah,
Holmes won multiple conferences. I mean, we can talk. There's 10 or 15 guys who won multiple conferences, and I think like Lonnie Rivera won the EWL and the MAC, and like guys have won the PAC and the Big Ten and the Big 12 and the Big Ten. There's all these different weird combinations, but it's hard to win two college conferences, as you know.
yeah.
But Marty had you, huh?
He had me. I was sulking. I'm not gonna lie. I mean that whole thought of, you spend your entire college career. I mean, I went to Ohio State for one sole purpose, and that was to win a national title. And I had it in my hands. I thought I was gonna do it. I mean, we had Pat Smith he redshirted, so it made it easy, or made it easier. He wasn't there, and then uh, I had some guys that were tough. I mean, I beat Bormet like the first one or two times, and then I couldn't beat him after that. Just conflict of styles, and I had it right there in my hands. It just didn't happen. So,
Okay,
and we had two national champions. We had Kevin and Rex, and it would have been great. I think we would have been top four, top three if I would have won, if I would have won. Yeah,
Hey, signed, by the way, signed. Okay.
dude, I wrestled that man probably two,
Authenticated,
three times a week.
authenticated and signed. Okay.
Look at that. It's
I got a
good.
bunch of, dude, I have like a lot of random, and that's like my all-time favorite
Dude,
athlete.
his freshman year. So
There you go. So he's a year
uh,
behind you. He's 89.
he's a year behind me, and when he came into the wrestling room, no one really like as my second year there. I mean, you start getting a little bit more confidence. I mean, Jordan beat the crap out of me for a while, and I got better. And you start putting that what Jordan and some of the coaches put on you, you put on some of the young guys. And I mean, Randleman was a good get in practice early on. Like you'd want to wrestle him if you wanted to ease your practice. I'm not saying that to sound awful with Randleman, but I mean, he got good by the end of the year, his freshman year, because he was on, he was lifting with Coleman and just got strong, and that you could tell by the end of the year it was just a different cat. But he was somebody that I wrestled pretty much all the time, and I loved it. He was a good dude.
Rest in peace, man. He
Yeah.
died February 11th, 2016. My son was born February 12th at 1:45 in the morning. So I remember that like being in the delivery room and reading that late at night, and then my kid's born an hour or two,
Wow.
got that news, and they
Yeah,
passed
we went. I
late,
went to
man.
the funeral. I went to the funeral. It was we saw a lot of people there, and it's sad. I mean, he was a shining star, one in a million type of guy.
So you guys, you come in through, you're at the end of Mark Coleman. So Coleman's your coach, Jimmy Jordan's your coach, and Russ Hellickson's your coach. Those are your coaches. And then you had like club, like I think Ken Shertow might have been a club guy when you were there.
Yeah, he was there. We had guys like Wes Audsley were there. Blue Ball was there for the first couple of years. I love that man. But yeah, there was. I mean, the guys that I wrestled with. I mean, Moran Karchalava came uh, after I graduated. He was there for a couple of years. But uh, yeah, those are some of the coaches that we had.
So you guys had a great coaching staff. You guys were top five in the NCAA tournament. 2 of the years you were there, you were an All-American those years. So you have great success. Focusing on the documentary, that we're talking to and kind of building to your background in the sport of wrestling at the Ohio State University. Are you Lemon Bay High School, by the way?
Yes.
So your son also Lemon Bay.
Yeah, I coached
Okay.
him at my alma mater. Yep.
Okay. So Lemon Bay, you come out of Lemon, that's Tampa area?
No, it's wedged between Sarasota and Fort Myers on the beach, kind of
Oh,
Gulf
okay.
Coast on the
Okay. So
Gulf.
my parents have a house in North Fort Myers. So I got you. Now I'm with you. Okay. So you're south of Tampa.
Yeah, about an hour and 15, hour and 20.
Okay. So, and then how far from Fort Myers?
Fort Myers, 50 miles, 50 minutes. I mean, not too far.
Okay. So you're from that area, you get up into the Midwest, and some things start happening. You're adjusting to Ohio Midwest lifestyle. Talk me through, talk about the things that you talked about in the recent documentary, HBO's Surviving Ohio State and Dr. Richard Strauss. When did things really start to really the light bulb coming on, the odd things were happening, and then obviously reflecting on it 30 plus years later, some very bad things were happening, right? But
Yeah.
when did the light bulb come on for you when you were at Ohio State with Dr. Strauss?
Immediately. I mean, we were there on campus. I lived in Morrill Towers, right next to the Horseshoe. So everything was in proximity for me. So when I first got there, we had to go sit with Larry Romanoff and do all of the compliance stuff and Kate Riffey, and then we had to go through, just the onboarding, so to say, as an athlete, going to figure out, what's what gear, and then next thing you know, we got shuffled off to go to a physical, and uh, is that I'm not going to lie. I mean, it was just a random thing. You go to this physical and you didn't really know what to expect, and then while you're there, you're kind of going from station to station to get your stuff done, and then you get to this line where everybody's just kind of backed up, and all the upperclassmen, they're just doing the catcalls of what's to come for everybody going into see Strauss, like oh, he's gonna like you, or just stupid stuff that they're saying, knowing what's to come when you go in to go see him. And so you had that before you actually went in. And then when you go in, the physical, not to get off color, I mean, you've got some of the stuff in the documentary, but I mean, uh, those weren't physicals. Those were above and beyond what anybody would do in a physical. And, you stand there, and I just did a podcast with somebody, former FBI agent, Jim Clement, and specializes in this. And I mean, it's like freeze, flight, or fight. And a lot of times you freeze, and it's like you don't know what to do. And me, being from how I was brought up and how I was raised, I mean, just kind of froze. Like, what the hell's happening? And you just kind of deal with it. And it was just basically what we all endured. I mean, it was rampant. So, I mean,
Do you think your coach is, you're obviously you got a great relationship at this point in time in the late 80s, early 90s, and that, the people you look up to, your role models are going to be Jim Jordan and it's going to be Russ Hellickson. Russ Hellickson's the head coach, Jim's the assistant coach. Jim's not that much older than you, right? Jim's 7 years older than you, maybe
yeah, I would bet. Yeah.
6 years, something like that. So, you're looking up to these guys. Did you feel like this is something where you were able to go to them? Do you feel like they were fighting for you guys and saying, "Hey, administration, bad things are happening with this guy"? Mike DeSabato felt like they were trying to do the right things. It felt like those guys were wrestling coaches and maybe they were told to shut up and coach wrestling. Is that what you felt like was happening, or is that not what was happening? Were they just like compliant with it? How did you feel about that?
You know, I got to look at it from two different perspectives. I'm looking at it through the lens of a 55-year-old now, recollecting all the stuff that we dealt with as a teenager going into, being a 21, 22-year-old man. Uh, there are two different perspectives. I mean, if you look at it, just the time that we were in the late 80s, early 90s, it was just different. Everything was normalized. I mean, Zeb, we had our doctor in our locker room with us. I don't know if you have a regular primary care doctor, but could you imagine that you're actually showering with that guy every day? I mean,
Nope.
I have a good relationship with I was a pharmaceutical rep for 10 years, and I have a good relationship with my primary care doctor. I could never imagine knowing that he was going to be in there showering with me every day and wanting to come back and watch people shower. So the environment that we were in, our little nucleus of our locker room, it was just out in the open, and everybody knew what was going on. Everybody knew that Dr. Strauss was doing what he was doing. He groomed everybody by the physicals that he did, probably found his favorites in regards to who he wanted to see, and then when they came downstairs, or whoever came downstairs from practice, without ever doing anything, to warrant going to take a shower, he would go in, get undressed, and then go into the sauna where we would be sitting after practice, and he would sit there with us in the shower. So to sit there and say, well, did Hellickson or Jordan know? I mean, we were sitting there and doing that with him daily, and then he would come out and shower with us. So, that's one aspect and perspective uh, as an 18, 19, 20-year old. We were in that mess, and it was just optically it was in our face every day. Looking at it now as a 55-year-old, you kind of wonder why things were done. And you read the Perkins Coie report, you read all the stuff that Ohio State knew and people knew, and nothing was done, and you wonder why he was so untouchable. I don't know. I wish to God I knew.
Mike, what did the FBI agent, did he have any insight as to why Dr. Strauss, Jerry Sandusky, Larry Nasser, the Michigan State, the Michigan doctor, did he have any insight in that podcast that you did with him as to why predators like this are able to, who are in like these high positions of power, doctors, obviously, doctor and a football coach with Jerry Sandusky, did he have any insight as to why these individuals are able to exist in plain sight?
It's just they make you feel comfortable, like it's just they've normalized everything. Like I remember when this first came out, we were all kind of invested with I'm sure you probably watched the Michigan State case and knew about it. Rachel Denhollander was the one that kind of was featured in the Indianapolis Stars report. But then if you watch some of the stuff like Athlete A or even the 60 Minutes, they had Allie Raceman that came on, and when she was interviewed, she said that an FBI agent came to her club and told her about it, and she like, oh well, we like Larry Nasser, and he's a good guy and wants us to succeed. And given the environment of what they were dealing with, it was a perfect storm because they were being ruled by Bella Caroli and that whole thing with fear, and they needed somebody to come in and be nice to them. And they had this guy that just was nice, and then it made it easy for him to do what he did. Dr. Strauss was a likable guy, and he made it easy for you just to kind of uh, um, like him to navigate through what he was doing uh, without ever missing a beat. It was like, I mean, I think he got I think he got to a point where he felt like he had all the power in the world to do whatever he wanted to do, and that there was no one going to do anything about it. And it's proven if you look at the Perkins Coie report, because I mean, if you watch in the documentary, you had Dr. Lombardo. I mean, for 10 years, he had the fencing coach basically telling him all the stuff that was happening, and Dr. Lombardo did nothing about it. He said it was just rumors, and he had the opportunity to do something and reprimand or to get Strauss out of there, but he didn't, and they just gave the fencing team a different doctor, and then uh, Strauss just kept on flourishing in the environment that he was in. I don't know. I don't know what that is that gave him the ability to have the power to be untouchable.
So when you had the podcast with the FBI agent, FBI agent, he didn't really have a lot of insight on
No,
whenever he.
I don't think we talked about that as much. I mean,
Okay.
he did the only thing that he did kind of he picked apart just how Jordan kind of navigated his interviews and stuff like that. And then he just basically talked about how when you deal with something and you're presented with somebody doing the abuse, you freeze, fight or flight. And I say this, there's over 700 plus people that have been infected. I don't know what the numbers are, but I mean, if you look at all the data, there's a couple thousand that show that there was abuse. The majority of this is all athletes. I mean, you have Steven Snyder Hill, you have Brian Garrett. I mean, there's some that were students, but everybody handled it the same way. I mean, Mark Coleman, who is the baddest man on the planet, and the Hammer. I mean, he could have broke Dr. Strauss in two. I mean, we all could have, but we all dealt with it the same way. I mean, it just at that time it was like you kind of shut up uh, and deal with what you're dealing with.
Essentially, he was so like he was disarming. He was like so
Yes.
disarming and so non-assuming and nice. You're like, this can't be a bad thing. I can't be nothing bad can be happening to me. Um, Two things that I have questions about. You and the FBI agent talked about Jim Jordan's line of answering one question. If Jim changes his line of answering from I had no idea, which everybody knew that everybody knew what was going on, right? My brothers were on the team. I knew the guy was a strange guy. I had a personal interaction with the guy, as a matter of fact, at the state wrestling meet where he cleared me for a skin infection to wrestle at the 1996 state wrestling meet. Um, he cleared me, and it wasn't because he didn't know who I was. You know what I mean? So The other thing is I've heard is if you were one of his guys or a person that he liked, he would you would benefit from knowing him. You would benefit, whether it was the drugs, right? That was kind of brought up in the documentary. Was this a pay to play system is what's been brought up. Was he giving people drugs for favors? Is that the thing I've heard as well? So
Well, yeah, I mean, I know you talk about drugs and talk about steroids because they did feature that in the documentary, but Dr. Strauss, we're all athletes there. And what's the old saying? To be a great wrestler, you got to be a reliable wrestler. And if you're going to be reliable, you have to be healthy. And so to wrestle Division One at a university like Ohio State, it's intense. I mean, we're doing this stuff. I mean, we were wrestling 5 days a week. We were running 4 days a week. We were lifting 4 days a week. So we overlapped to where we had three practices a day. Then when you get into season, you're cutting weight 3, 4 times a week where you're riding a stationary bike. So now your practices bump to four practices a day. And so we're constantly beating our bodies. I don't know if I was ever healthy to where I was 100%. I didn't have an ache, a pain, nothing. So we were all kind of dealing with that. But if you needed to uh, get healthy or to get medication for something. And if like with wrestling, I mean, you have skin issues. I mean, the ringworm or the mat herpes. I mean, all that stuff is real. And if you let it go and don't treat it, it takes off, and then now you're out for a long time. And so I mean, you're what's the lesser of your evils? Going to see Dr. Strauss and have him do what he's doing, or get what you need to get so you can stay healthy. That's kind of what it was, Zeb. I mean, it was a necessary evil, and if you watch the way our dynamics in our locker room was, you know, everybody teased about this. It was kind of like you're not going to be that guy that's going to go say something, but we're all going to be teasing about it as to what's been going on. I mean, it was just out in the open. That's what I remember.
so okay, so essentially, yes, you had to go to this guy and he had to give you treatment. So there was
Yes.
like this thing where you almost couldn't avoid it or you weren't going to be on the mat. That's You
Yes.
weren't going to be competing. Essentially is what I got out of that. But if and these we I think we all can come to the consensus that these things happened. I don't
Yeah.
think you have hundreds and hundreds of coincidental
No.
things. If Jim Jordan, when asked the first time or however many other times he's been asked, no longer JM. If you look in a lot of it,
Yeah.
New York Times, GYM, they call him Jim, right? If Jim says something to the effect of, I knew Doc was a weird guy. I'd heard things. I personally never had that interaction with Doc, but I had heard things. He simply changes it to that, right? Does that change anything in your relationship and how you guys feel towards Jim Jordan? If he at least just says he knew, right? And what Mike DeSabato said is he was not responsible. He was the assistant coach. Does that change how you view Jim Jordan? Would your relationship be different with him had he done that?
Yeah, listen, when I graduated, I never got the only time that I've seen Jim Jordan since I've graduated was at Kevin Randleman's funeral. I haven't talked to him. Maybe I talked to him once because I went to Washington D.C. On a family vacation, and I got him to, get one of his office workers to give us a tour. But I haven't talked to him. I mean, so my relationship is really not what it was when I was in college, where we were talking all the time. But my assessment of what I have no ill will towards Jordan at all. I look at him like he was a blessing for me when I was in college. I don't know why he like when all this thing broke on the 4th of July weekend in 2018, he was kind of caught off guard with the article that came out in the NBC or whatever. Um, but he ended up going on, I don't know if it was a week later or how much later, he went on Brett Baer, and I'm watching him and just some of the stuff that he was saying. Brett ended up giving him a softball toss asking him about our facility. I mean, dude, our facility was the most deviant environment that you could be in. And there are so many like things that happened in the 5 years that I had him as my coach where it is just known what people were doing in that facility. I mean, our academic advisor caught two guys going to town with each other in our wrestling room up against the water fountain. And he told me that. And I'm an athlete. You don't think I mean, our academic advisor was playing racquetball with Russ and Jimmy pretty much a couple times a week. He would come up in our wrestling room and work out all the time. He would work out on his lunch break, and so to sit there on a national television show and discount that wasn't even there, it just threw everything into the same bucket. Like I don't believe you. I'm not going to lie when I say this. It's not just me, but a lot of the other wrestlers were pissed. I mean, because he could have come in there and just validated. If you know this, at the beginning of this, when Mike DeSabato came out this, and I listened to your podcast with Mike, and you talked about being a shyster and whatnot. You know, early on, Ohio State gaslit the hell out of Mike DeSabato and everybody that was a part of this case. They put out a clean file to show that Strauss was, an upstanding guy and clean file, and they put that out there. And they tried to paint Mike as this like vengeful former athlete, blah blah blah. So we were not only getting gaslit by our university, and they didn't validate what not just me, but all these other sports, like 15, 17 sports. I never had relationships with any of these guys that are a part of this lawsuit. I don't know the pole vaulter or the fencer or the swimmer. I didn't know these guys. And so how am I having the same story as those guys? But then to have the two people that are the most important in our lives that we spent countless hours with in Hellickson and Jordan, to have them invalidate this, it was awful. I mean, if they and I don't know who gave him counsel to take that tact. I mean, if you would have if Jordan would have came in there and said, "Look, Strauss is a weird guy. He was showering with us. He was doing all this. We saw it all the time. I mean, our environment was deviant. I mean, we caught people doing stuff that was bad all the time. I would have been great. Okay. I have, but he has doubled down and continued to double down on everything. And it just, and he's not even the story. The story is a university that knew about this for how many years and didn't do anything about it. But I get the media hype that they're going to put this guy in the center of the storm because of his position. But it's just he's not the story. He's part of it, but I wish he would have done what everybody expected like coaches to do, and that's to be there and validate and support our guys. Like he's called when all this broke, there was so many people that he reached out to call. There was not a call that was made, to my knowledge, where he's like, "Hey, I'm so sorry this happened," and in my position, what can I do? There was none of that. But he's calling everybody else to get him to vouch for him, and it's just, I don't know why the tactics. And then we had Hellickson. I love that man to death. He's been a huge part of my life. I was walking the Appalachian Trail for a couple years ago after wrestling season, and we coordinated a get together with Russ, and we ended up all meeting together. And when we got out of that meeting, there was like 30 or 40 of us, and we kind of all shared our stories, and we walked out of there, and he was gonna write a letter and in support of us, and then I don't know which outlet he was gonna put that out in, and that's what he basically told all of our guys that that's what he was gonna do, and then he ended up doing a 180 on that and didn't do it.
Can
So
you ever, okay, we can't unring a bell. We know that bad things happen, right? We've got hundreds of people vouching for it. Can you ever can Ohio State ever fix this? Obviously, the abuse and how you guys were victimized. Can Ohio State ever make this right, and what will it take to make this right for you? Just kind of if as like a closing statement as we're finishing up here, what can Ohio State do to make this right? If they can
Listen,
do
they've been fighting us for 8 years now, Zeb. And if you knew what they were doing on the backside, I mean, just the start of this, Mike DeSabato put in a public records request early on when he was talking about this, like in January, February of 2018. Put in a public records request for a lot of stuff that was going on with the Honda banner issue that he was dealing with Spielman and Archie Griffin. At the same time, he decided, well, like, I'll throw in some of this stuff with Dr. Strauss just to see. And Ohio State told him to go kick rocks and basically say, we're going to close your request because we don't have anything. And then Stephen Snyder Hill on that Fourth of July weekend sees the headlines coming across the his TV and sees the mugshot of Dr. Strauss, and he's like, wait a second, that's the doctor that abused me. But Ohio State didn't account for Stephen Snyder Hill to have the only documentation of abuse by Dr. Strauss, and he had it. So Snyder Hill came in and put in a public records request, and they couldn't do what they did with Mike with Stephen Snyder Hill because they knew that he had his paperwork. So they were basically gaslighting Mike early on with this whole thing and putting it out there like we're all crazy. If they would have validated this and they put a because they when Snyder Hill put in his public records request, they held it from him and didn't give it to him for months. So he sued them and won, and he won $25. That was what he won. But he ended up getting, and Ohio State said that they didn't give him his public records request in a timely manner because they wanted to piecemeal it because they didn't want to re-traumatize him. And so they gave it to him within an hour of them releasing the Perkins Coie report. They put all the file, they released it and they put it out to for the public to have of the file, all the bad files of all the stuff that they showed in the Perkins Coie report that Mike DeSabato asked for and didn't get. If Ohio State would have given it to him early on, they would have validated what it is that everybody went through. They wouldn't have gaslit him. We would have been believed, and it wouldn't have been like this whole thing, like it's a shisty, like what you said, he's a shyster. We would have been believed from the get go. So Ohio State is culpable in making us all feel like invalidated or like this. You guys are this is full. You're full of crap. None of this happened. But again, how is it that all these sports and all these different athletes came together? They've all have the same story. We all have the same story.
yeah,
It's no different.
Mike, I'm going to have to take a quick break. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Come back with part two, okay?
Okay. All right.